I wrote something to the sorts of, the journey of life is full of ups and downs, and it's here and there, and it's sometimes hard and sometimes easy. And people might think like, what does this got to do with yoga? you know.
Yeah.
So I wanted to.
Yeah, I gave a lecture for Poland yesterday, live online lecture about yoga more than exercise.
Yeah. Mm.
And because today is International Yoga Day,
Right.
you know. So, what was it, 2006? What was the date of that when it first was declared? 2006 or
Yeah, something like that. Something like that.
somewhere back in there. Anyway,
Yeah.
at the United Nations Council, I think it was Narendra Modi from
Yeah.
India made a proposal that they set aside one day a year as International Yoga Day. And uniquely enough, all the members, you know, agreed. Unusual, but they did. I mean, why not? What's it going to hurt us? I mean, kind of like that thing. Okay, if you want that,
Yeah.
you're from India, you're a, yogi kind of guy. Yoga comes from India. So, yeah, we can do that. Probably that's how it went. I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
sure it wasn't because everybody there does yoga.
Exactly. And they saw all the
Yeah.
benefits for the people and all the benefits it could have for the world, and they really wanted everyone to do
Yeah,
yoga.
it wasn't that. It's just like, okay, you can have it if you want,
Yeah.
and so anyway, that's how it all began. And since that time, they set aside June 21st as International Yoga Day. And so that's today. That's what it is. Today is International Yoga Day.
Yeah.
And so in all countries of the world, I don't know about all, but many, many countries of the world, it's being celebrated with programs and increased activity in the yoga studios and you know yoga challenges where there's a challenge. Okay, we're going to have a 21-day yoga challenge. Meet in the
Yeah.
park every morning at 7 a.m. for hatha yoga and different meditation programs and kirtans. And I was watching some online programs from our friends, and yeah, it's very nice because at least it brings awareness to the subject of yoga,
Yeah.
which is a beginning. I mean, maybe nobody's ever going to do it, but at least they're more aware that it's important enough to have an international day set aside for it.
Yeah. I
And
guess
that
just
just might be
very.
something that makes a person decide to go to the local yoga studio down the street and see what's going on.
Yeah. And then maybe from there, that's the first step you take, and then you explore more and more, and then you see, wow, this it's got a
Yeah.
lot of benefits for me.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yoga is not just from nowhere. It's been around since the beginning of the creation.
Yeah.
The Vedic scriptures and the Vedic teachings are the the source of yoga. I mean, Vedic scriptures and yoga scriptures are synonymous. It's the same thing, and it's stated in our main scripture, Bhagavad Gita, which has been declared the supreme book of yoga. That you know since the creation, the living entities came into being, taking their positions in the material creation. And along with that came the Vedic teaching, the scriptures, the knowledge, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, here you are in the material world. Now here's your guidelines. Here's the information you need to know, to traverse this material world successfully.
Exactly.
How to make the
Mm.
best of a bad bargain kind of thing. And so yeah, yoga is not new. It's become popular in the last what I'd say 60 years.
Mm.
Around the the late 60s, 60 years, it started appearing. When the hippie movement started, that's when, things started coming out of India, coming out of the
Yeah.
East. I mean,
Mm.
before that, India was just basically an unknown country for most people.
Yeah.
It was just somewhere over there that they did unusual things, and people who came back from India had stories to tell that people couldn't, relate to in the West,
Mm.
like the worship of cows, for instance, the cow being considered a sacred animal.
Yeah.
And I remember my uncle, he worked for the oil companies, big ones like Caltex and, Chevron and these kind of entities. And as a result, he was pretty high up in the hierarchy, and he went to all these different countries and would stay there for like a year, 2 years,
Oh,
all
okay.
over the Middle East and Sumatra, and one of his times he spent in India.
Oh.
And when he came back, he used to come back every 2 years and visit for about 3 months, you know. And he always bring us gifts and whatever. And when he came back from his time in India, he was telling us all these stories about the way they worship and the cow being sacred because we were farmers. We lived on a farm and we had cows, and we didn't see them
Oh.
like that.
Right. Right.
So he was telling us, how they see the cow and how they respect the cow and how they don't
Oh.
eat meat and, just like something out of a fairy tale for us. Like, what? you know,
But
I mean,
how did he react to that? You spoke about before. This is your dad, yeah? You
no, my uncle.
Oh, your uncle. Oh, your uncle. Oh,
Yeah.
I don't. Okay.
Yeah, not my dad, my uncle.
Uh, guess
And well, he'd been to so many different countries and cultures and seen so many different things. He really wasn't like shocked by any of this. Oh,
yeah.
this is the way they do things, and this is the beliefs they have, and this is what they do over here, and you know, Muslims think like this, and Hindus act like that, and
Mm.
they read
Mm.
these scriptures and they read these. So it wasn't like he was, like amazed or shocked by it. It's just like he just told us the facts. This
Yeah.
is what happens in India. But this was like, in the late 40s and 50s. And but what the point was, India was an unknown country,
Yeah.
and their culture was basically unknown.
Yeah.
There was no Indian restaurants in, the United States where I grew up, or,
Exactly.
so everything was like unknown. And then about the mid to late 60s, all of this interest in India began to appear. Eastern philosophies and
Yeah.
you know the the yoga idea and meditating, and the Beatles went there and came back with their stories and wrote their songs about it, and you know that's when people started wearing Indian clothes, like the madras shirts and you know the loose pants, and it just became a cool thing.
Yeah.
And but that's where I bumped into the whole story, other than my
Just gonna
uncle.
ask. I was just gonna ask how you. Yeah.
And it was exciting, it was different. It was like everybody knew the story of the West, and this was something we didn't know about, and the idea of meditating and going into trance and doing hatha yoga and all these things. And it was like, wow, this
Kind of
is
opening up new possibilities or
yeah,
new
this is
ways.
exciting. And so that's like I say, that's how I bumped into it. And I was, as I've said many times, my whole life was surfing, and three of the top surfers in the world at that time. Hawaii was the epicenter of surfing.
Hmm.
Still is, but then even more so. This was before a lot of these other places had even been discovered, like Indonesia
Uh,
and all these things, hadn't even been discovered yet. So Hawaii was like ground zero. It
I
was like the Mecca. That's why I was there. I went to Hawaii specifically for that reason. And so, anyway, three of the top surfers in the world that lived right up the road from me. I knew the guys. I mean, not personally good friends, but I knew who they were and seen them and been in the water with them. Anyway, they on this cover of Surfer magazine. This was 1969. It showed the three of them standing on their head right by Sunset Beach. It's in the background. Sunset Beach is one of the big wave surfing spots
uh-huh.
known by everybody in the surfing world, probably. And there they were at Sunset Beach, standing on their head. And then there was a whole article about it. That was on the cover. And then there was a whole article about it,
Wow.
about how every time before they go surfing, they do some yoga, asanas, stretches, and so on to
Oh.
limber up, get more, limber and fit. And then they would meditate, sit eyes closed, meditating for, a few minutes before they went surfing.
Wow.
And I was just going, man, these guys, I mean, they're the guys who know the story, and
So
if
you
it's
were
good enough for
inspired.
them, it's good enough for me. I'm gonna I'm gonna start doing this too, you
Wow.
know. And I did, and that's when I started, I got a big book on hatha yoga asanas and started looking at the pictures and trying to imitate it. And there wasn't a lot of
It
explanation. It was
was
it was more a photo shot than a detailed
right.
description.
Wasn't like today when you can just browse on YouTube and find how like.
Oh, no way, definitely not. And so I'd sit on the beach, eyes closed, legs crossed, thumb and first finger joined, thinking about the waves. And, hoping
Meditating on the
nobody would go
waves.
out before I did. I wouldn't spend too long in, you know. So anyway, that's how it all began for me. Yeah, and then it was all cosmic and so in a few books I could get my hands on, which weren't many. It was talking about vegetarian diet. Being a yoga diet. So yeah, I'm going to become a vegetarian. Took me a while. I went slow. I gave up red meat and chicken and so on, and still ate a little fish, and then, you know.
Yeah.
But I became a vegetarian, and I was doing hatha yoga every day and sitting in meditation, trying to think of nothing or whatever I was trying to do for, some period of time because I had time. I was working at night, so I had all day to do whatever I wanted to do. And so, yeah, that's what I did. And I got really involved, and everything I touched in connection with yoga improved my life. I mean, I could just tell it,
Yeah.
and some of the interests I had before and the things that were important to me. I kind of changed my priorities, because it
I see.
wasn't it wasn't a priority in yoga. And
I
now,
see.
my priorities were two things, yoga and surfing. So a lot of other things that had been high on the list just kind of faded away or moved down, many notches because it just wasn't what I was doing with my
And
life.
like you said before, there was an experience. Like you said now, that's you just
Yeah.
felt it. Like
Yeah, I mean, I just knew it was good. It wasn't like somebody had to convince me.
yeah.
And I was living in a house with three other guys. And neither one of those three had the same fervor for yoga that I did. You know,
Oh.
I mean, I was a little more excited about it, serious about it, really implementing the practice and so on, much more than they were, which was
But
fine. But there was no conflict.
but they were surfers. Like they were into that. That's the interest that you shared with them. Or?
Two of them were surfers, one was not.
Yeah.
He was just a friend, and he was into the whole, yoga, not yoga, but hippie lifestyle and so on. But a lot of times people ask me, "Oh, you were a hippie?" I said, "No, I wasn't a hippie. I was a surfer," because there was a difference. the main difference was hippies didn't have anything to do. Surfers had something to do every day. Hippies just hung out,
I see.
listened to music and got stoned, and just that's what they did,
Yeah.
and surfers
Yeah.
had an agenda. I mean, we
You
we
had a
we
direction.
had a we
You.
had a direction, we had a job, and so anyway, that's how it evolved for me, and the music was evolving about that time, and kind of in that meditative or deeper realm direction,
Mm.
and so I just kind of got caught up in the whole thing, you know,
No.
and
And
so
then you.
that's what led me to become more and more involved.
Mm. For someone, I guess that's also in that point, you're reading books, and especially when you're like in that stage that you're, I mean, it's really hard to get by as any information. So I guess you had to, I mean, I could guess that you needed some form of teacher or some inspiration in that way for you to progress from the point where you were at.
Well, yeah, I
It's,
did, and so my first movement was I lived on Oahu, which is the main island in Hawaii where Waikiki and Honolulu and all
mm,
of that is. So I was living on the North Shore, which is kind of like we called it the country, and it was the you know non-commercialized beaches. That's where the best surfs were on the North Shore, and so on. So I was living there. I'd moved out of the city. I lived in Waikiki, then I moved to the North Shore, moved to the country, as they say, and then eventually I realized, well, this is a little too much. So I moved to Kauai, which was a real isolated type island, the most northern in the chain.
because you
And
had too much people. You mean like it was not
yeah, it was
rural
just
enough, or
I was still working, and I didn't want to work anymore. It was
yeah,
just kind of in the way of my direction.
yeah.
And so I moved to Kauai. I lived in a Volkswagen bus, and just parked in the forest by the beach, and that's where I lived, and surfed every day, in Honolulu, which is an amazing surf spot. But there's all kinds of you know nature there, like uninhabited at that time anyway, more so than now. We'll call it jungle because that's kind of like what nature is in
Mm.
Hawaii. It's like jungle, and rivers coming down and waterfalls, and so you could just go up
Wow.
some river and just stay there all day or all week and probably never see anybody.
Wow.
And so I just go up there and continue with my practice, always up in the morning to watch the sunrise, and going up into the mountains to see sunsets, and just that kind of pursuit. And so anyway, it was really a nice experience, really. And I hooked up with Painop, and he was kind of on the same page, and
We have to get
uniquely
him to the
enough.
show one day. That would be so fun to have him here. And anyway,
Yeah, yeah.
what were we gonna say?
So we were
Mm.
we were kind of doing our thing together, you know.
Mm.
And then we met uh, Sri Swarupananda Paramahamsa, our spiritual master. He had just come to Kauai to see, you know, he was on Oahu, actively, you know, giving this teaching to others, and he came to Kauai to see if anybody would be interested. And that's when I met him, and I was very interested, and I could understand that this is a real teacher. I mean, this is not just a book. This is a live, book. this
Mm.
is this is somebody who has the knowledge and has the desire to help me in my spiritual journey. I mean, I just knew that. It just wasn't like I had to figure anything out. Is it true or not true? It's just like I knew.
Mm.
And so from that moment, I just kind of, here I am, take me where I should go. And so that's how it went, you know.
But
Mm.
for someone who's listening to this and wondering, like, because we wanted to focus on and share the benefits of yoga, like, what would you say? How has this helped you? I guess that's a long question, but how has this helped you in your journey forward? And for anyone listening to this and like thinking about, oh, maybe yoga, but why is this relevant to anyone, and why would that be helpful for anyone on
You know, many
this?
times people say, "Oh, how has yoga changed your life?" Over the years, I've had that question
Yeah.
more than once.
I see.
What did it do for you? I said the best way to answer was, what didn't it do for me? You know, it did everything. You know, it changed my whole vision of the world. You know, and as I gained more actual truth, knowledge about the world, I understood, you know, that the world's not our home. You know, and before I met my spiritual master, I already had had some profound experiences to, you know, definitely let me know I'm not my material body. I mean, that was not even a question. You know,
Mm.
I'd read it in some books, and then, you know, I had an experience or two, and I knew I'm not the body. I mean, it wasn't like, I don't know. I mean, it's like I knew. I was out of the body looking back at this, you know, form, and that
Oh,
wasn't me. I'm somewhere else. So,
kind of out of
you
body
know, I
experience.
knew who I wasn't, but I didn't know who I was. If you
Yeah,
can really, I know I'm not the body, but who am I? That I
yeah,
didn't know, not really.
yeah.
And am I God? Am I the light? Am I whatever, whatever? You know, because, you know, different books and the authors of the books, really, I mean, the books are just paper, but, you
Mm.
know, the people who wrote the books were telling me, oh, you're God, or, oh, you're, you know, everything, or
Yeah.
you are, you know, me and I am you, or we're all one, and all kinds of different, you know, ideas.
Mm, mm.
But I
Yeah.
really didn't
It's,
know that was true, you know.
mm,
And I was trying to come to terms with the idea that I'm God, but deep inside, I mean, in my mind, I was saying, "Yeah, I'm God." And there's even meditations like that,
like
you
on a
know.
mental level to,
Yeah, to just sit and you know, do this affirmation. I am God, I am the supreme, I am everything, I am one with everything,
yeah,
everything is me, and I am, you know, and you know, you're just trying to program
yeah.
the mind, you know.
I've, I've, yeah,
But in my heart, I knew it wasn't true. I mean, but I was thinking, well, the reason I have this feeling that it's not true is because I'm just not advanced enough
exactly,
to realize it is true.
exactly.
And the problem is my lack of advancement, not that it's not true, it's just that I'm not there yet. Mm.
I've been exactly in the same spot. Yes, I know exactly what you're speaking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
So when I met my spiritual master, you know, one of the first things he told me is, because he knew, I mean, I talked to him a little bit and told him what I was doing and, you know, my meditations and what guru I was following and so on. And so he knew where I was at, so to
mm,
speak. And one of the first things he said is, "You're not God. You know, what makes you think you're God?" Well, actually, I don't think I am. And so then he explained who I am, who I was. I was spirit, soul, part and parcel of God's. You know, not God, but His child, or his part and parcel. You know, and so that made sense to me. You know, that rang true. And I was thinking to myself, wow, what a relief. You know, because trying to be God is not easy. You know, because God means controller. I can create anything I want. I can get anything I want. I can satisfy any desire I may have. Because God could do that, right? If you're God, what couldn't you do?
yeah,
And so you're trying to do that, but it's not working. You know, and so therefore, you know, trying to be God is not easy. And it was like such a relief. So no, you're not God. You're the child of God, and you're the servant of God, and your position is to serve God, not to try to be God. I just went, wow, thank you. Great. I'm happy about that, you know. And then he explained, all the ideas behind Bhakti Yoga and, introduced me from ground zero to the chanting and how this is, the most pleasing activity you can do, for God, your service to God, and that this will purify you and that it will bring you true happiness and satisfaction. But it wasn't just, again, a teaching. It was every day we did it. Every day. And you could just feel it was true. It was working. The attraction, I was attracted to the philosophy in the very, very beginning. I was looking for philosophy more than the chanting.
Right.
I wanted to know the truth. What is the truth? That's why I was reading all the books. That's why I was sitting in meditation trying to have some realizations or some insights or, some, light appear and reveal something.
Yeah.
And so I was really interested in that aspect of yoga, the truth. And so when he began to explain all these teachings of Bhakti Yoga, it just filled in all the gaps and corrected a lot of things that I, had wrong, misconceptions that I had about many things. So it changed my whole outlook, and understanding. And everything was like made sense. It's like you got a puzzle and you got all these pieces, but they're in the wrong place.
Yeah.
And so the picture just doesn't look right. It's some parts of it look okay because you got those pieces right, but the rest of them are it's all weird. Like that doesn't look right. But then you just take all those pieces and put them where they're supposed to be, and you get the picture. Like, wow, yeah, now this is looking right. It's feeling right.
Exactly.
And so you can't deny these kind of things.
And that also helps to put in picture like the importance of taking care of your body and your mind and your psyche. All these things are contributing to this cause of your actual well-being, your physical, your mental, and your spiritual well-being. Like all these things are coming together, and you're understanding all these things where they fit.
Yeah,
The yoga
exactly.
exercises, the breathing, and
Yeah. Why do the yoga exercise? Because your body is, not your body. It's not your body. This is God's body, but He's given it to you and you're the steward and you should take care of it. It's His property, and you should take care of it and keep it in the best condition possible. So, Hatha Yoga, you know, take care of it properly. Breathing, your mind is all over the place. Pranayama helps you to control the mind, kind of calm it down.
yeah,
But in Bhakti Yoga, we're not focusing on all of this that much. It's like the main focus is, control your mind by engaging it in service to the Supreme Soul. Instead of like, the mystic yoga process, for instance. Also, known as Astanga yoga, and it's an impersonalist approach, and where you're trying to, Kundalini and all the chakras and
raising the Kundalini. I think there's
movement
someone
up
else
through
said
the
that.
chakras, et cetera, et cetera. That's mechanical. You can be an
Yeah,
absolute atheist and sit down and apply these mechanical techniques and achieve results. It has
yeah,
nothing to do with your heart. It has nothing to do with, developing love and so on. In fact, mystic yoga can actually have the opposite effect. It can harden the heart, because it's not about you and a relationship with a supreme person. It's about you becoming more powerful, developing mystic powers, raising the kundalini, you know, and being able to control other people and controlling their minds or read their minds or all these mystic abilities that a person can acquire through this mechanical process doesn't do anything to soften the heart, and so many mystic yogis, I mean, in our Vedic history, we have accounts of many mystic yogis, who were so advanced in the mystic abilities, it's called the siddhis, the 8 siddhis, or mystic perfections. But they were just hard. It was not
Mm.
that warm, loving, soft, person that what it's who we really are, you know. So it was
But it,
taking us kind of away from our true self.
but that's, I mean, it doesn't, like, you could still be that by follow by, but like through following that process, or is that, but that's not the focus, or you mean?
Well, that's not the focus, and it gets in the way. I mean, even Patanjali, who is kind of seen as one of the founding teachers or pivotal teachers,
Yeah,
in yoga.
yeah,
I was studying his book before I met my spiritual master. I was studying his book, and he was describing how you can develop these mystic powers, but he said, don't even look at them. Just stay away completely because they're a distraction. They just take you
mm,
off the path. The journey is to go higher and higher and higher, and enter into the spiritual world. And your development of these powers, which are material powers, it's just learning
yeah,
to manipulate subtle material energy, whether it's
yeah,
the ability to levitate because you can, overcome the forces of gravity, or whether you can be, the ability to become smaller than the smallest through certain ways to manipulate the material energy, or whatever. You see,
yeah.
that's a distraction, And so Patanjali was telling his followers, this is in the way of the goal, you know. Do not get involved in it. They're there, they're available, but see them as unwanted, distractions.
And then there's, I just have to mention your friend Acharya Das. He has an excellent YouTube channel speaking from Patanjali's teachings.
Oh,
We
great.
can probably link to that. Acharya Das on YouTube if anyone is interested.
Yeah,
You can,
yeah. See.
Acharya Das Patanjali. You can look at that. He has an excellent explanation, because Patanjali also mentioned Ishvara in his writings, by the
Yeah,
way, which is
yeah.
the supreme person.
Right,
And
right.
so
Yeah, so, but a lot of the followers, they don't see that part, or they miss that part, or they don't want to see that part,
yeah,
you know. And so, even though the teacher may
exactly.
present something like Shankar Acharya, who was, an incarnation of Lord Shiva, and he came and kind of, took people away, from the Buddhist teachings, and got them back to the Vedas and so on. So he was kind of like presenting impersonalism in one way, but ultimately he said, all this mental speculation and word jugglery will not help you at the time of death. Bhaja Govinda, Bhaja Govinda, Bhaja Govinda, which means worship Govinda, worship Govinda, worship Govinda, the
Wow,
Supreme Personality. But
wow,
his followers don't see that because that's not what they want to see. They want to
wow.
hear what they want to hear, that we're all God, that we can become one, that we can merge into Brahman, etc., etc. So you're a follower, but you're not wanting to follow what you don't want to hear, kind of thing.
Oh, well, that's much easier when you have a spiritual master who lived 1,000 years ago, and he's not living right now. He's not like around to instruct you and to help you, and
Yeah,
you
yeah,
can just
yeah.
pick and choose what you like.
Right. But
All right.
a true spiritual master, living spiritual master, which I was so fortunate to have had and have, you know, wouldn't let me go there.
That's, yeah.
They said, no, 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 no.
Mm.
That's not how it is. So when I came up with my ideas about, I'm God and the impersonalist teachings in general, he just said, no, that's all true to a point, but beyond that, there's this higher truth. It's this higher realization. And this is what your constitutional position as a spirit soul is.
Mm.
This loving relationship with the supreme soul, the Adi Purusha, the original supreme enjoyer, And so, that was so fortunate but I wasn't resisting. I wasn't, again, fortunate for me. I wasn't trying to, say, but. I mean, I accepted. Here's the authority. I'm the student, and I listen and I accept and I follow, you know. And again, all the while, the chanting was a part of our everyday activity, and, the offering of food, all the things that we often speak about in Bhakti Yoga that, brings us in direct contact with the Supreme Lord, and studying Bhagavad Gita, which is spoken by Krishna himself, the Supreme Lord. And, so all of that made it so, all these other teachings I had to just understand were, to the part they were true, but there was much more, And if somebody wants to follow those teachings, they will get a result, but there is more to be had, so to speak.
Exactly.
Mm.
Exactly. Mm.
And that's what I wanted. I wanted the best. I didn't want, okay, this is great, but if there's something about that, I want that. And if there's something about, I want that. So that was just my personal experience. So what did it do for me? It changed everything.
We're coming back to that, yeah.
Yeah, that's where we all started. But once you understand your spirit soul, then obviously you want to know, well, what's good for me, the spirit soul? And you can understand all the things that I used to think were good for me, the body, all the different pleasures and, material achievements in whatever way a person may be moving,
Yeah.
It's not necessarily good for me, the spirit soul, But you're hearing this truth every day if you're studying these scriptures. It's not like you hear it once, because we forget like that. So the other message of the material world is ever present.
It's kind of overflowing. It's
from every angle.
Yeah.
From you just look anywhere and there's that message. This world is your home. You are the body. Your senses and their pleasures, are your sources of happiness. And if you engage your senses in this way, it will make you happy. If you engage your senses in this way, it will make you happy. And so on and so on. I mean, that's the message everywhere, And so if you're hearing the other side of the truth only once or twice or once a week, you see, and then, all
The
the
rest of
other
the time
hours
you're
of the week you're hearing the other side,
Uh-huh.
even from friends and family and all kinds of, close association,
Yeah.
then what's going to win out in the end? Most likely, the material message.
But the yeah.
Go ahead.
No, that's why. Well, that's where that's where meditation comes into the picture, isn't it? I mean, that's your way to withdraw from all these illusions and all these things, and experience what's real and what's a real value, and remember that and feel that, experience that, and just come
Yeah,
back to
yeah.
who
But
you
if
are.
you're a person who likes to be in society and socialize a lot, and your association is always telling you the other message, the influence is very strong. Like when I was on Kauai, for instance, I just had a couple of friends that were kind of on the same page, And so that, made it easier for me. And I spent a lot of time alone. But this is not a practical thing for most people. I mean, come on. I mean, I was in a unique situation, by the divine arrangement, But that's not practical. I mean, I know people are here, well, I can't do that.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
basically, if you went there today, you probably couldn't do the same
I was
because
gonna
now
say.
it's much more popular place, and so all the places I used to go probably got trophy homes built there.
And it just made me think probably what you have to do now is go to northern Norway like these two guys did, in
Yeah,
winter. They lived for a year building the huts from
yeah,
the
yeah,
wood that floated shore, and they were surfing.
yeah,
You gotta find the like unhospitable,
yeah,
cold, terrible place where no one else wants to be. You can live.
yeah, yeah. Right, exactly. But our philosophy is very practical. I mean, you can chant the mantras anywhere. And you can chant them in the morning, you can chant them in the evenings, you can, everybody's got earphones in their ears now, listening to something.
All the time.
Phones are loaded up with music, so you can just, listen to the chanting in many different situations, even while working, in some jobs, people, can listen. And if you listen a lot, even in your mind, just when you're not listening through your ears or whatever, it's just playing in the mind. You're chanting in the mind, you know. Whereas if you're trying to sit down and think of nothing, that's not so easy to do while you're driving a car down the road. Close
Oh,
your eyes and just, like maybe that's why they're developing those driverless cars for the
so
yogis
you
to
can sit
meditate
there.
while they're driving, while they're going from point A to point B. Just get in, ohm out, and, wake up. You get to the other end, and there's a buzzing or beeping that brings you out. Oh, no, I'm kidding.
Ding ding.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm out. I never heard that expression before. Yeah.
uh, yeah, that was the mantra we chanted a lot, back in those early days, you know, is Om, because that's a transcendental sound. I didn't know, exactly what it was, except it was just a meditation
Yeah.
mantra that you do a lot,
Yeah.
and I didn't know it was, the impersonal sound representation of the Supreme Lord, and
Mm.
really it's no different than the Supreme Lord, and it has its purifying effect. I didn't know any of that,
Yeah.
you know, but
It's
I liked it. We did it
yeah.
a lot,
Yeah.
and
It's
we'd be driving from. We lived about a 45-minute drive from the surf, and we'd be driving there in the mornings, oming all the way. Om, not
oh.
with our eyes closed. I was driving, but just oming, with
Yeah.
the idea, if we ohm all the way there, the waves will be good when we get there. This is somehow going to cosmically
Oh, really?
arrange it so the waves will be really good, you know. And if the waves
Oh.
were good, we say, yeah, it worked.
And if it didn't,
And it
then
didn't work well.
you,
Well, it didn't
you
work today,
didn't.
but tomorrow maybe it will.
Yeah, you didn't own good enough. Like you
No,
had
we didn't give up on it. Not at all. And it was fun. It was. That's a fun thing to do. You know, but the Om, for unless you really know, the whole understanding of Om, doesn't bring to light or to mind a person. It's connected with the impersonal
energy
cosmic
and mm,
energy, and you know it doesn't bring to mind a personality. But if we say the name Krishna or Govinda or Gopala or Gauranga, that's a name, and names go with people. you know so therefore it brings to light there is a supreme person who has many names.
mm,
And the more you get to know the person, you would rather connect with the name of the person than Om, which is connecting you with the kind of impersonal energy of the
Yeah.
Supreme. It's just more attractive.
Mm.
And it's common. I mean, if you know somebody, you would rather call them by their name than by some other sound, you know.
I was, I was following this yoga from Vailana, and she always did Om Hari Om. I love that. That's such a nice
Yeah.
meditation.
Hari
Yeah.
is one of God's names. Yeah, so Om and Hari, the Lord and his energies. And so it's non-different. God is non-different than his energies. So really, there's no difference in Om and Hari, but at the same time, it's an absolute realm. So it's not like different, but simultaneously one and different kind of thing.
Don't
Yeah,
try to wrap your head around it.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, very nice. So yoga is wonderful. It's much more than just exercises. Mm.
But where do you start if you are listening to this and you're like, oh yeah, this sounds interesting. In which end do you start? Like, does physical yoga have to be the start, or where
It doesn't have to
how
be.
does the
You don't even
journey?
have to ever do physical yoga to become a yogi. You know,
Mm.
but you know, it, because most people identify with their bodies, and it's kind of been established without a doubt that hatha yoga is good for the body. Then a lot of people start there. They're looking
Mm.
for physical improvement, just like I
Yeah.
started to improve my surfing. It wasn't for some spiritual anything. It was just if it'll make it so I can surf better, then that's great. That's enough for me. I wasn't looking for anything more. So you start where you want to start. You can start with chanting. I mean, a lot of people are attracted to music. In fact, I'd say 99% of the people are attracted to music.
Yeah.
Who isn't attracted to music? So, you know, if you like to start there, fantastic. I mean, really, in our presentations, we're not really promoting hatha yoga. We do, like you're a hatha yoga instructor.
Yeah.
You teach it to people, but we're not saying this is where you got to start, and we're not saying this is the end goal. This is something you can do to improve your health, introduce you to yoga. Uh, you know, I'm sure at your programs you also have some chanting,
Mm.
something connected with transcendental sound.
Yeah, and
And
and it also helps, and I can really feel that. Like, it helps you to become aware of your body and feel like there's something more. You become more aware of the subtle energy in your body. You become aware of like the movement of the life air within the body. So in that sense, it takes you out as well from your bodily consciousness. Like, you may have started it from that consciousness, but the very act of doing this hatha yoga is also a reminder and an experience that makes you feel like, wow, there's so much more here. I can't just be the body. Like, there's an energy flowing here.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so
Yeah, and everybody's going to have their own individual experience.
yeah,
But
for sure.
if you put that idea in somebody's head just by saying what you said, then they
Mm.
start thinking about that
Mm.
more than if you leave it to them to just come to that conclusion on their own.
Right, right.
So if you just put that idea in there, then they start, when they're doing their hatha yoga, start thinking about what you just said, the energy flowing, and wow, this makes sense that I'm not this body, and I'm the resident of the body, and
It's kind of
you
like
know,
you see it like a machine, like you experience like this machine working, and you can take a step back from the machine, and you know,
exactly. And it says in Bhagavad Gita that the soul is sitting like on a machine, like this is the material body. It
yeah.
describes the body as a machine in Bhagavad Gita. So the more you can just be prompted by little ideas or little aphorisms or statements. I mean, that's what everybody's doing, right?
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
is.
McDonald's is doing the same thing, just trying to put the idea of, a Big Mac in your mind, or, something that they have to offer, and it kind of makes you think, oh, yeah, that would be an interesting thing to try. So we always try to, you know, put something out for the people to grab onto,
Yeah.
you know. Where to start, where the interest takes you. Like I say, if the musical interest and the mantras are amazingly soothing and relaxing, maybe you just want to sit down and listen. Maybe you don't even want to chant yourself, just listen to the chanting. And you experience such relaxation and peace and calmness. Beautiful, you know.
Mm.
There's a good place to start. Or like you say, if it's in the yoga studio and doing hatha yoga, or whatever it is.
And I've
It's
had
not one place you need to start here, and then step 2 is this, step 3 is that.
no,
You know.
no. I've friends. I know people who came to yoga and they heard and they understood there was something more, but they were very determined. Like, I'm not interested in anything more. It's just for the physical benefit of fixing my back. And this person that I'm thinking of, was his reason, But gradually, 1 year later, his interest started. He started having some interest, and you know.
And his back was better.
And his back was yeah. And if it hadn't been, then I don't know. I guess it's a personal, like, if
Yeah.
it doesn't help the surf, will you still do it then? Or
Yeah.
I guess that's from
But for me, I
person.
mean, it was much more than that. Yeah, it was just like, but
Yeah.
I was a ripe candidate. I mean, I just was, but a lot of people, they're not so much ready to make any
Mm.
movements now. But the beauty of this whole thing is it purifies whether you know it does or not. It's in there and it's done some good work.
Exactly.
And
Mm.
that may not, appear for some years. And then at
Wow.
some point, something happens in your life and you reflect, somehow you're reflecting back on something you heard, 10 years ago or 20 years ago. And you go, wow, I remember now this. Or maybe you remember you chanted and it felt good, or, you know, you heard something and it made you think. And then it becomes something that's relevant 20 years later.
Yeah.
I've met people who said, "Oh yeah, I read something in Bhagavad Gita 15 years ago." And now, it makes sense. Now, I'm interested, but it took 15 years,
Wow.
to bring it to fruit.
Mm.
Everybody's moving at their own pace, and that's another beautiful thing about yoga. It's not like somebody's forcing anybody to do anything. It's it's all volunteer, and you just go at your own speed. There's no
Mm.
competition, unlike
Exactly.
everything in the world.
Exactly. Well, I always say that in my yoga classes as well. Like, that's a nice way to teach us how to live as well, how to, like, be on the yoga mat. On the yoga mat, we don't compare ourselves with anyone else or ourselves. We're just, okay, open for whatever we find. We take a step back. We're apply more curiosity than judgment. We don't have to be the judge of everything and everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
Yeah. Yeah, you have to, kind of prompt people, kind of
mm,
give them give them the playing field. Tell them, you know, how the game is played and where they fit in and so on.
mm,
Because, we don't know. I mean, what do we know? We only learn from those who know, and so if those who know, readily help us, then wonderful. It's great. Well, what does yoga really mean? You know, I was explaining this last night in that lecture I gave for
It's a
Poland.
good question. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about a lot of the parts of yoga, but yoga actually means the word is defined as linking, you know, or union. Mm. And that's why if you've got two oxen pulling a cart, you know, they're bound together by a wooden, what they, the name is a yoke. You know, the two oxen are bound or joined together by this yoke so that they pull together. You know, it's not
Ah.
one's up here and one's back here.
Hmm.
You know, they go together at the same speed. And so that's coming from yoga. I mean, it's
Ah.
linking together. So it specifically means the yoga, the linking or union between the individual soul and the supreme soul. Linking, union, but a union in love. See, it's a union of wills. I mean, we've all heard and maybe, you know, hoped for or possibly even experienced a husband and a wife, you know, are like one person. You know, there's two individual people, but they're so linked in will and attitude and everything that it is almost like there's one unit. And that's rare, but but you know that's the ideal, isn't it? You know, you're so close that you're just like one. But
Mm.
where is the closeness? Are you the same person? Have you
Oh,
become
exactly.
each other?
That's gonna say.
No, you're still two individuals, but your will is now in harmony. See, you're linked, you're harmonizing with each other.
Mm.
And this makes for a perfect relationship. So when you take that to the ultimate perfection, it's linking the individual soul's will with the supreme soul's will. See, whatever the supreme soul's will is, that's your will. What do you want me to do? I want to do that. You see, you guide me. I'm your instrument. Let me do what you want me to do. Hmm? And what is the other thing that these two people in this perfect harmonious relationship have? They have the desire to please each other. So the
Mm.
wife wants to please the husband. She knows the husband likes a certain type of food. She wants to prepare that food. He likes a certain type of clothes. He likes her to wear a certain type of clothes. He likes her to do this. She wants to do that. Maybe it's not her number one thing, but it is her number one thing because she knows it's pleasing to him, and vice versa. He has the same attitude toward her. So there's mutual attempts to please each other.
Mm.
And again, that's making it so it's smooth, it's harmonious. You see, and that's perfection is when we have that desire to please the Supreme Lord, and He always has the desire to please us. In other words, to help us, to see us happy, to see us satisfied. See, so really, the work needs to be done on our side because on His side, it's already perfect. All that is already there. You know, He's just waiting for us to gradually come to that perfection on our side. Mm. And that's yoga. That's the goal of yoga.
But for anyone who's listening to this and wondering about this idea of a, I mean, I think that the idea of a person, a supreme person, is a quite a, I mean, that's a big step to take for some people. Like, how would you, I don't know, how can you transfer from the idea of seeing it like a big energy to like which qualities does a person have that would, how can it be, how can there be a supreme person? Isn't the relationship more like a flat one, like more horizontal one? Like, what's what's a way to understand this in a true sense that will like make sense to you? If you see what I'm trying to say.
What you're trying to say is our minds are in control and we want it to be the way we want it to be. And so on. But if you think about,
Yeah.
get out of the mind and into the heart, what is everybody looking for? The perfect person.
Yeah.
What does everybody need in their life? A person to love them, to care for them, to protect them, to give them shelter, to fulfill them. I mean, everybody has that need from the birth of the baby to the death of the old man or old woman.
Yeah.
Everybody needs that. The entire span of life. That's what they need. And that's what we're always looking for and hoping for. And if we've seemingly found it, trying to hang on to it, which is impossible. You see. So really we're already in that consciousness. But it's not consciousness from the mind, it's consciousness from the heart. This is the soul's true essence. See? But when we come to this spiritual philosophy point of view, we kind of deny all of this and try to, in the mind, create what we think it's like. Oh, there's just energy. Well, if it's all you need is energy to make you fully complete and whole and happy and satisfied, why don't you just hug the lamp? You know, if light and energy is all you need, you got it in a light bulb. You know, but that's not what we need. You know, that's what people are always disturbed by. I don't have anybody to love. You see,
Yeah.
you can't love energy. The energy comes from a person. If you're in love with a person, they automatically are radiating loving energy. And that's what
Mm.
you love. It's not the energy void of the person. The energy comes from the person. It's logical, it's sensible stuff. It's
It is.
real life experience stuff. And we create all these philosophies or, you know, adhere or accept all these philosophies that make it so we can never be happy. That we consciously deny that, thinking this is some superior level of achievement. You're going backwards. See, that's why the heart is never satisfied. Back to the mystic yogi. His heart is never satisfied. You know, his mind, his intelligence, his psyche, everything is so advanced mystically. You know, he can do things that, you know, the ordinary man would think would be impossible to do, you know. But his heart is void, you know, and he knows that. He feels that. That's
Mm.
why again, in our Vedic history and in our, you know, uh, knowing, you know, current examples in people's lives, great mystics have become great devotees because that wasn't enough for them. They had to have that love, that affection, that personal relationship with another person. But there's no accounts in the history where a perfected bhakti yogi, one who has this yoga perfection with the Supreme Lord, goes back to being a mystic.
Mm.
There's no accounts of that because they've already been there. They know that was inferior. That was not as complete as this. The heart did not get from that achievement what it's experiencing now, which is called rasa, you know, or prema, love for God, you know, and that's who we are. And as soon as you just logically receive this, then you can kind of readjust. I mean, that's what I was trying to do. And when I
Yeah.
heard this, it was like, now this makes sense, you know.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. Like you were listening to your mind instead of listening to your heart, and you
Yeah.
one thinks that's kind of superior in some way because I guess you believe that one is superior, like your mind capacity is superior to anything else.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
We're very cerebral persons.
Zebra
in
or cerebro? Yeah,
cerebral in the head.
cerebral. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So, you know, it's a very, very logical understanding, you know. but maybe we've had such bad experience with personal relationships that we kind of think, well, they're all going to be like that. So we
Yeah.
don't want God to be a person because, you know, that won't work either. That'll
Yeah.
just be another disappointment. Or maybe it's because, I'm so filled with pride and arrogance and wanting to be number one. I don't want there to be someone superior to me that I have to surrender to. That I have to, do somebody else's will other than my own. That's a big stumbling block for some people. So create a philosophy where there is no person. It's just energy. And you just suck on that energy. You just, bring some of that energy into you, and it just makes you invincible, or it builds you up, or
I
it
see.
makes you
I see.
radiate, or you know,
I see.
you just tap into the sunlight, and you're effulgent kind of thing.
Do you don't
You
really
know,
have to change.
yeah, I don't have to change. I just feed my false ego more and more. You know, I just keep getting more and more, proud, and the self-aggrandizement is just elevated more and more. So
And that's a risk. Like that can happen if you do practice yoga. And like that can be, you can apply these things in that direction as well,
of
if that's
course,
what one wants.
because the power is there, the energy is there.
Yeah.
What are you going to do with it? You know, it's all
Right.
what we do with what is available. The energy is there. What are you going to do with that energy? You're going to
Exactly.
use it in God's service, or you're going to use it to be God. You know, to prove, that you are whoever you want to prove yourself to be. You know.
Yeah. They always, I mean, I just remember the saying from Spider-Man. It's
Mm-hmm.
probably from somewhere else, but they said, with great power comes great responsibility. And I
Yeah.
always remember that. This was a long time ago.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah.
So humility is not a popular character trait in the world today.
Oh,
It's it's just not the direction we're going in, or told to go in, or led in. You know, but the other direction is the way we go. You know, so yoga brings about all good things, and it has to, because it comes from the all good source. The Supreme Lord is the all good source. You know, and again, back to your question. Well, what about someone who has a hard time thinking God is a person? You know, we've got so many examples in the world that show that if you are in this condition of yoga with the Supreme Person, look at how wonderful a person you are. Like, look at Lord Jesus Christ. Now, he was a perfect yogi. He was a perfect yogi. He was linked with the Supreme Soul in love. He said that I and my Father are one.
yeah.
See? He said, if you want to, love the Lord, then I'm here to show you how, basically. I mean, he didn't say it exactly like that. I'm an example of pure love for God. That's why his first commandment is love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, mind, entire being. He always presented the ultimate absolute truth as a person.
Yeah.
Father is how he addressed the Supreme Lord, Abba, Father. But look at what qualities he had, how humble he was, how he was persecuted, how he was blasphemed, how he was tortured, how he was ultimately crucified. You see,
Yeah.
I mean, he absorbed all this mistreatment, see, with humility and free of anger.
Exactly. No anger, full of forgiveness. He was,
Yeah, he was saying, Father, please forgive them. So is that a good quality? Does he exemplify a superior character, a superior level of consciousness? Is his heart bigger, so to speak? Was he giving his whole life to people's well-being. You know, he
I
had
think
mystic powers. All pure lovers of God have access to all the mystic powers. You know, it comes with the kit, you know, but they don't misuse it. It's like there, and in most cases they don't even use it. Jesus did in a few cases. You know, he healed a blind man. You know, he brought Lazarus' son back to life. You know, he healed a leper. He healed a lame man. You know, he did wonderful things, see, that was for the purpose of making it so people could understand this is a special person. He's not an ordinary guy. You know, he has something that I don't have. So when he spoke the message to the people to love God, they were more likely to listen to him than somebody who hadn't displayed the fact that he's special, that he's connected with some energy, some power, some person. He has some abilities that we don't have. So now he's on a higher level of respect, you know, in general. See, so he used them in his preaching service. But the point is this not, you know, a laudable condition to be in? I mean, if you look at his life, wouldn't that be nice to be like that?
I think
And
most
where did
people
it
would.
come from? It came from that relationship, you know. So, you know, all the naysayers and the people who don't want God to be a person, they don't want God to, they don't want God to be anything. They don't even want to talk about that subject. They're unfortunately denying themselves real life. What are they going to get? You know, what is left for them? The emptiness, the loneliness, you know, of not having that, and not even wanting to have that. See,
And then
so
that's what you have for others as well. Like that's what you can pass on.
yeah, that
Then you don't
ultimate
have it.
rejection is their downfall. You know, and how can you try to love other people and you deny the source of love? You know, it's just sentiment and it falls apart. You know, it doesn't really last. You know, we got to go soon, but it's, you know, I just read this thing about a couple in Ukraine, who Eastern Ukraine, and they fell in love, and they decided to prove how much we love each other. We're going to handcuff ourselves together, you know, and they did. He handcuffed himself to her and so on. And they had to do everything together, everything. Sleeping, eating, bathing, toilets,
Oh,
changing clothes, everything. Because the handcuffs were on. They didn't have the key.
oh,
They
that's what I was
couldn't get them,
gonna.
they couldn't get them off. It's not like, let's try this for 24 hours. It's like they committed. 4 months, 4 months they did this. And just a couple of days ago, they went to Kiev and they did a big press conference thing, and they had somebody cut the handcuffs off of them. And immediately they split. They just said, we understood we're not good for each other. You know, they couldn't wait to get away from each other. He even moved to another town completely so he wouldn't even have to be in the same town, you know, with her. See? So that kind of union, you see, it doesn't work. It's sentiment, emotion. It's not real, you see. It's just not how it's supposed to be.
It will never work. It's not just like the one time it didn't work. That will never work because no one else is perfect. No one else in this world is perfect.
Yeah, there's no such thing.
Jivatmas.
But there is a perfect person.
Hmm.
The Supreme Lord is perfect. See, no imperfections. And again, that's what we're looking for. You know? So yoga is all about that. Hatha yoga, body. Pranayam, mind, body and mind, hatha prana. control the senses, all these things. But ultimately, you got to come to that point of bhakti, loving devotion. You see, you have to ultimately bring it to bhakti before you can get the full absolute satisfaction. Truly happy, truly satisfied. And if a person wants any of the other, rewards, we'll call it, of yoga, they can definitely have that. We're not saying anybody has to do anything. If all you want is this, then do that. If you want this plus this, do that. If you want this, and this, do that. See? But we're saying there is an ultimate destination. And on International Yoga Day, we hope somebody will, be enthusiastic to move in that direction. And we hope more and more people will begin somewhere in the yoga system to apply the process.
Exactly. And every 1,000-mile journey starts with one step,
One step.
One step.
One foot in front of the other.
Just make sure it's the right direction. I was thinking that the other day. That's a good saying, but it doesn't say anything about the direction.
Well, we're talking on the direction of yoga.
Real yoga.
Yeah, real yoga. So, yeah, International Yoga Day is a good way to remind us of the wonder of yoga and pass our, hope that more and more people will find, yoga in their life. Yeah.
Wow.
I'll close with one little story. It was in Los Angeles. This was quite a few years ago now, when yoga was becoming more and more popular, but not on the level it is today. But anyway, there was a young guy in his 20s, and he was been arrested for violence, disrupting the peace, I think, physical assault, this kind of person, And so he was before the judge, and this wasn't his first time. He'd been involved in this kind of behavior several times. And so the judge sentenced him to take yoga classes for 1 year, 3 times a week. And people were saying, well, what kind of a sentence is that? This guy's, he's obviously a violent person. He should be locked up. Why are you only giving this? What kind of a sentence is this? And the judge's reply was, I don't do yoga myself, but everybody that I have known that seriously did yoga, it really improved their life and made them more peaceful. And he said, that's what this person needs. Putting him in jail is not going to achieve that. See? So I thought, wow, it's a pretty progressive judge.
Wow. Exactly. It's very...
I didn't hear the result of after 1 year, what happened. I never heard that part. But that was his understanding. 3 times a week for 1 year, you have to go to yoga classes. And my bet is, and my assumption is, it changed this guy. So, yeah, it's for everybody.
So
okay, Ruben, I think we better chant.
And with
we will
basically the kind of like the main activity of real yoga again, the focus activity, the meditation, and especially this form of singing and music, chanting.
Yeah, there's nothing in yoga practice that can achieve what the chanting of these mantras can achieve. Nothing. There is nothing anywhere in any sphere of life that can achieve what the mantras can achieve. Purifying the heart, purifying the mind, cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for lifetimes and lifetimes. That means karma, unwanted desires, all the harshness and anger and, every undesirable thing is purified by the mantras. Yeah, so that's why we're always promoting this. And then, like I mentioned earlier, when we first, entered this teaching and realm of bhakti yoga, that's what we, from day one, that's what we did and still do every day, as we chanted. Philosophy, yeah, vast. We studied philosophy, but we chanted every day and still do.
For 50 plus years. Wow. Amazing.
Okay, so the mantra is the same as always. Gauranga Haribol. Gauranga Haribo. Gauranga Haribo. Gauranga Haribo. Gauranga Haribo. Haribo, Gauranga, Gauranga, Haribo. Haribo, Gauranga, Gauranga, Haribo. Haribo, Gauranga, Gauranga, Haribo. Haribo, Gauranga, Gauranga, Haribo. Haribo, Goranga, Goranga, Haribo. Haribo, Goranga, Goranga, Haribo. Haribo, Goranga, Haribo. Haribo, Goranga, Haribo. Goranga, Haribo. Goranga, Haribo. Goranga, Haribo. Haribo. Goranga, Haribo. Haribo. Goranga, Haribo. Goranga, Haribo. Goranga, Haribo. Goranga, Haribo. 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 Haribo.
Haribo. All right.
Okay, so that's Sankirtan, congregational chanting of the mantras. And that's what we do every day.
Great.
Yeah, and anybody can do it. Like I say, even if you don't like to sing, you can listen, and it's for everybody, from the youngest to the oldest.
Hmm.
So we can see you next time
Yeah,
with
thank you.
another something.
Another, yeah, we'll see what it is. But
Yeah,
it's
we'll talk about something relevant to everybody's life. Yeah. Okay, Ruben, thank you. I thank our Chintamani team here. That was who was singing in the background. And, Slava's our technician. He's always keeping things rolling.
Thank you, Slava. And thank you, Balakhilyas.
Yeah.
Always nice.
So, Ruben, Haribo to all your family there.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm sure they send their higher bowls as well.
Yeah. So, thank you very much, everybody. Happy International Yoga Day.
Yeah. Happy Yoga Day, everyone. Namaste, Balakhilyas.
Namaste. Haribo.
Haribo. So thank you very much if you're watching our live stream, wherever you are watching. We didn't really introduce ourselves that much because this is I know you got to tune into our conversation, but my name is Ruben and I'm trying to follow this lifestyle for some while. Met Balakhilyas. We became good friends. He's, my friend and my teacher. He's, as you probably saw, very special person, sharing very precious gift to us. So we have started a podcast, or we are starting a podcast in 2 weeks called the Breaking Trail Podcast. So check us out on Facebook. We are not live yet on the podcast platforms, but we are on Facebook, Facebook page, and an event for the launch in 2 weeks. And I'm gonna just add a, actually I'm gonna show, so I'm gonna do a video, a promo video for the podcast. You check that out, be inspired, hopefully, and join us for the launch in 2 weeks time. Thank you very, very much for joining. Any questions, anything else, just write us. But yeah, so here's the video.
Life is a journey. It really is. It's an eternal journey because we're eternal. It's not going to end when the body ends. This is just one blip on the radar. Life is a puzzle, but every little piece of the puzzle that you put into its proper place gives you a little better picture of the whole thing. So you add this piece, this bit, that bit, and pretty soon you're inspired to go to a higher level. And not only physically, but mentally, and not only mentally, but consciously and spiritually, and one builds on the other. It all is part of a program that's changing things in your life. It's all leading in a positive direction, step by step. Life is meant to be joyous, really. But if you're trying to have a joyous life from material sources, then it won't be joyous. Do we need all these extra things? Do we need all this success materially? Do we need all these things that we don't have? Or not? There's a saying in the Vedas, simple living, high thinking. We're going to be on the journey regardless, so why not make it the best journey we can make it? It's an experience. It's not just a philosophy. You'll feel better right away. Really, you will. You'll feel better inside. One step at a time. One step at a time. That's all. Never give up. Never give up.